Hey friends, this is Paul DeBeddings. Thanks for stopping by. Kind of put together a series of slides that I've been providing at meetings with clients and candidates, speaking a lot over the last weeks and months on what's going on in the recruiter space and the hiring space here in Minneapolis, St. Paul. So throwing it all together here into a slide deck, adding some audio, going to toss it up on YouTube. I've never done something like this before, but maybe this is a way to be able to share a bunch of information with some folks in a more convenient way. Quick blurb on me. Been recruiting for a long time. Been writing the Minnesota Headhunter blog. I'm into the 10th year now. Do a lot of speaking on recruiter HR stuff locally and nationally. Many of you have probably seen me at tech events this spring. You know, mini bar, mini demo back in January, a bunch of user groups, and so on. And then, of course, my recruiter and HR friends see me at those events as well. So, for those of you who might be thinking you need an IT recruiter, there's some stuff for you to think about. You can just hit pause, read that later. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because I'm not trying to make a sales pitch with this. Here's what I'm trying to cover here over these next minutes, and I've got a bunch of screenshots that are going to go along with this, so it's not just going to be a bunch of minutes of me just rolling on. If you want to find me afterwards, feel free to send me an email, paul@mnheadhunter.com. You can follow me. Just search for MN Headhunter on Google. You'll find me. If you want the slide deck, just send me an email, and I'll shoot it over to you. So I spend about half my time at Coco, whether it's in downtown Minneapolis or in the uptown space. And so the balcony here is kind of like my favorite little perch to be able to kind of work things through my head, and this is where I've kind of put all this information together. Had a good time at Minibar this spring. What was it, 1,200 some folks registered, 900 or 1,000 attended. I was a part of two presentations. The one on the lower left, I did my career maintenance presentation again for, I don't know if that was the 6th year. And then the lower right, we did a presentation on should you go work for a startup, or not a presentation, but a panel on going to work for a startup, should you, things to think about. Real good day, 11 hours of nonstop tech and a lot of IT recruiting and career maintenance conversations. And so this was an article I came across last week, and I'm not a big fan of war for talent. I don't like the word war, let alone treating people like talent. But this is just an ongoing conversation I have with folks pretty much every day. And so that's what I want to cover with some of this material. And so I've been doing presentations at companies. I was on CCO Radio back in April talking about local jobs numbers. The Twin Cities Human Resources Association, the Minnesota Recruiters Conference, the Minnesota High Tech Association have all had their spring events. And so there have been a lot of conversations, again, on the IT recruiting side of things coming out of those events. And then I did a webinar back in April for 600 folks just on some basic stuff like how to write a better job ad. And so this is actually how it came about. I wrote a blog post for a national site just titled 1 in 10 IT recruiting inquiries do not suck. I asked that question at my presentation at Minibar. I've been doing it at the user group meetings for the last year or two. It's always the same answer. And so with that, I kind of want to give folks an idea of what's going on in the IT pros' minds, for those of you who are listening to this who are, whether you're a startup CEO, a recruiter in HR, or whatnot. So this was that presentation that I did. Coming out of Minibar 2, this was the 5th year in a row, I think, where I came out where I had folks saying to me in one half, like in my left year, where I had people saying, man, I can't find who I want to recruit. The market's really tight. In my right ear, I would have IT pros, developers and developers and programmers saying, I can't find a cool place to work. I don't see any job posted for someone like me. So finally, many of my friends will attest, I finally decided to create this Minnesota IT job board. It's not really a job board per se. It's actually just an extra page on my blog. You can find it from the main link. But the idea is I want to try to help match people up a little bit better, and also, kind of separate from what I'm doing in my day-to-day job as an IT recruiter here in town. It was a really wicked busy spring. Thankfully, Memorial Day weekend, I was able to get out of town for almost 5.5 days, although I was working during some of it. Yeah, some of you are looking at that little northern I'm holding there, and you're kind of laughing, but I caught that sucker on a 2-pound test while I was jigging for crappies, so it was a good fight at least. But the weather was good. It was a good time to kind of catch up and free up my brain a little bit. And so that's how I was able to get this presentation finally put together. A couple of quick things. On June 2nd, I'm hosting a Recruiting for Minnesota Startups event at Coco downtown. It's sponsored by Google for Entrepreneurs. It's free to attend. Everything I'm going to run through here for right now is on the calendar on my blog. So you can go there to see more information about this and and to find the link for registering. Also on Thursday, was it 2, 3, 4, 5, June 5th, hosting a brown bag lunch also at Cocoa for recruiter and HR friends. It's kind of just for people who are in downtown or who want to drive in, haven't seen the Cocoa space, maybe network with some friends. Like you just bring in your own lunch. I'm not going to put anything together. It's just we're going to sit down, have a cool chat for an hour, hour and a half, whatever it is. We're going to talk a little bit about metrics and analytics when it comes to career pages, job posts, things like that. So if you're in downtown, that link is also on my blog, as well as these are two. I'm going to be also Thursday night, June 5th. I'm the second speaker at the Minnesota PHP user group, and we're going to talk about career and job numbers and things. And then for those of you who are interested in sort of the social media side of things, I'm doing a presentation for the social media breakfast. I think this is my 5th one now, doing it on personal brand and kind of talking to folks about how it is that this thing kind of came together. And I am an introvert by nature, so it's going to be kind of a cool story to be able to tell. Last one for the recruiter HR friends, it's still going to be a little bit about this personal branding type focus. That's on June 18th. And again, all those links to register are on my site. Something else that I've been working on for the last year and a quarter or so, I've been a volunteer for Advanced IT at Minnesota State College and University, or MNSCU, and a new application development program has been put together. Short version is it allows students in their junior year or end of their sophomore year to apply to this program for junior year for us to get them into paid internships and kind of create a bit of a more specific curriculum versus particularly ones that will come into like more modern, modern in quote technologies, right? Mobile development, a lot of open source technologies are going to be taught. Metro State here in Minneapolis is going to be the kind of the pilot program for this this spring. So there's this event is on Tuesday, June 17th, and this is also on my site. So if you're an employer in town, you want to learn more about this program, this is going to be we're creating this from scratch, but this is going to be a really good way for you to bring in good, talented, smart college students into an internship program. So some real quick stuff on what's going on in Minnesota. Mini Bar, right? Spoke a little bit about that. 1,200 folks, 11 hours at Best Buy back in April. Mini demo was packed at the Depot back in January. Awesome presentations and a lot of really good networking that night. The Girls in Tech group here in Minneapolis, St. Paul has had a number of events, and we had the Grace Hopper event last year. Was it last summer or fall? That was really well attended. Cocoa and Google. Cocoa now is a tech hub for Google, and so Google's underwriting a bunch of presentations, continuing education kind of things like my presentation on June 2nd. User groups and meetups are packed. The JavaScript user group tends to have a wait list. And besides that, there's also a Node group, an Angular group. I think there might be an Ember group now, last I heard. So when you get this, if you want the slides or just search for this on Google, but this is like a link to the tech.mn calendar. That's where I go to find out what's going on in town. Minnesota Cup last year, too, had a record number of applicants, had a great event in September. Coder Dojo, teaching kids. We have IT folks who are volunteering on Saturdays for half a day to teach kids how to code. It's a phenomenal thing. We're always looking for more volunteers, so if you can help out, that would be awesome. Healthcare.mn has sprouted up. It's related to startups in the healthcare space. They have office space on North Washington Avenue here in the North Loop. And then there's some conversation in a couple of different places about creating a code school, either one that's nationally coming to Minneapolis or starting one kind of organically up here. And so lots of stuff is going on right now in our hometown. Shifting a gear a bit, recruiters are in high demand. I think I've posted 15 recruiter jobs in the last 10 days on my site. I do that. Been doing that for years. This is the most amount of jobs I've had posted since, I don't know when I started doing that, 2006. It's kind of crazy. There's a lot of tech companies. There's a couple of startups that are also looking for they're looking for tech recruiters. And so that's kind of a good bellwether for me, right? Because I knew in the spring of 2008 that we were coming into a bit of a recession, or at least an economic slowdown, because the HR and recruiter folks, not only was I not posting jobs, we were seeing some of these folks getting let go. And so now we're seeing an extreme opposite of that. Did this blog post a few weeks ago about contract rates for recruiter contract rates for folks here in Minneapolis, St. Paul. So for my recruiter and HR friends, there's some info there. I also did a blog post about what are recruiters and search firm side of things getting paid. So kind of want to shift this to job and skills info. If you're wondering why you're kind of breezing over this stuff, this is just meant to be a summary of what's going on. Like I said, if you've got questions, thoughts, comments, send me an email. Find me on Twitter, whatever you want to do. Job and skills info. So March of 2010 pretty much was the coming off the bottom of the IT job market, post recession. Around March of 2010 is when we came off of that. Here's a slide for the last couple of years about this is national jobs now. There was a bit of a plateau last summer on IT job creation. Some of that might have been maybe the demand, the supply of IT folks wasn't meeting the demand. There might have been a bit of an economic slowdown, or again, not a slowdown, a plateau. But clearly over recent months, hiring has picked up. Minnesota IT unemployment's been less than 2% for, it could even be a couple of years now. Frankly, I've lost track because that's just a number I've known for a long time. So if you're an IT pro, because you're getting hammered by corporate search firm, recruiter, HR folks who are trying to get in touch with you to see if you're interested in looking for a new job. If you're hiring, the market's been tight. We're going to talk a little bit about that as we get a little bit further here. This is for Q4 2013. I think this, I can't remember where I got this one from. This might have been, I don't even know who I got this slide from. Sorry about that. But Minnesota ranks, or Minneapolis, St. Paul, Bloomington, 13th for jobs. You'll note that the 4.22%, we actually have maybe a higher concentration of tech and related jobs than maybe some of the other cities do. There's been a huge amount of churn going on since maybe December. There have been a number of layoffs, right? Thomson Reuters, Cargill, Target, Best Buy. Cargill's outsourcing some folks. So there's been some churn. So it's been kind of a funky time in the local IT job market. So demand is high. Even if the economy continues to limp around or forward at 2 or 3%, I mean, what we've been doing is what's going to be happening, right? So if recruiting's been difficult, it's going to continue to be difficult. If you've been getting a lot of phone calls and emails from recruiters, you're going to continue to have that too. And so this is kind of how the market is, only it's probably going to get a little bit more intense as we go forward. There were a couple of announcements in the last, 2 or 3 weeks. So we'll call that May for those of you who are listening to this at a later date. This is, you might be wondering about this OkCupid Orbitz thing, but Target announced that they were creating a digital advisory board. The reason why I put this on here is they are hiring 50 new software engineers to work on Target.com. So that's going to put some more pressure on the local IT job market, as well as Thriven announced that they're going to be adding 50 people as well to kind of help shore up, because they've got some IT folks who are going to be retiring soon. And so that's how this market's kind of a bit crazy right now. So yeah, we've had some layoffs, and we also have companies announcing some major additions. Again, this is the way it's going to be for the short run. So there were, kind of take a step back a little bit. Folks were going to increase, they were talking about how they were going to be increasing their hiring in Q1 and Q2 in 2014. Got a couple of 3 slides about that here. So the reason why I'm putting this out here is I've had a lot of internal corporate folks saying, okay, we hear this, but can you actually show it to us? And so I've been pulling these stats and surveys from different groups. But so this is like, the answer is yes. This is what's going on. Here's another one from CIO, a survey that they did. And one more, this is the national unemployment for tech folks. You'll note that for Q1 2014, it's 2.7%. Right, Minnesota, it's less than 2. I'm thinking it's less than 1. We're getting the semantics at this point. Pretty much anything under 2% is full employment. And so I put all that out there. So again, for the folks who are on the hiring side of things, who still might not be sure, is this really what's going on? Kate, the answer is yes. Companies that are talking about are positions hard to fill. Well, the answer is yes. So if you look at that, 50% are saying it's taking 3 to 6 months, or 3 or 6 months or more to fill positions. That's kind of crazy. And only 19% now are saying that they haven't had any positions to fill. That number was in the 20s before. Now it's down to 19. Bellwether for me, besides my recruiting friends, whether it's the search or the corporate side, are they being hired? Project manager and business analyst demand continues to increase, right? So good news, if you need some PMs and BAs, that means you're probably hiring a DBA, a few developers, and software engineers. Again, I'm contained but bullish on what's going on here for the IT job market going forward. And I'm not just saying that as an IT recruiter, not as a headhunter. You might expect me to say that, but that's just the direction that we're going in right now. I get this question at Minibar all day long. What's in demand? Well, I hate to say it, just about everything. And the asterisk is just that the demand kind of, again, peak and plateau. Think of a space since March of 2010. So now, who you want, or what you're hiring for on the company side, pretty much everybody's in demand. And that's, again, not meant to be, I'm not trying to give you a bunch of hype, but I'm seeing it everywhere from, you've got your Java.net folks, your open source, your PHP, your Ruby, your JavaScript, your Python folks. We're seeing, more systems administrators being asked for. Obviously, the IT security thing is huge. Just kind of leaving it right there. That's kind of how I've been answering the question. This is a conversation I had a lot of, though, and wrote a blog post about it a month or so ago. It was from a Java developer. Should they start learning Ruby on Rails? And I do say to my IT friends that the pro is doing the work. I think that you should be trying to pick up as many languages as you can. For better, for worse, for right or wrong, we're seeing job descriptions that are pretty much 17 bullet points long, and they're asking for someone who knows everything. I'm not saying that you need to be really skilled at a bunch of things and a master of none, but I would start learning some things too. And we're talking about career maintenance. I think about where's the market going? Where's IT demand going? I think about, sooner or later there will be another recession. It'll happen, right? 3 years, 5 years, 7 years down the road, whenever. There's going to be another recession. And having a diverse skill set will be in your best, will help you be in a better place for that. This was a part of that blog post. This was just showing job trends on Indeed for .NET, Ruby, and Java. This is just kind of where it's at. This is from DICE. Skill requests at all-time high. This shouldn't shock anybody either, right? UI, HTML5, information security, cloud, and big data. So that's on top of the .NET Java. That's on top of the Ruby, Python, JavaScript folks. This is why I had that asterisk earlier, that just about everything. So this is for what's in demand in job posts on DICE, okay? So that's why it says most desired skills, software developers. Again, these numbers are kind of what I would expect. The reason why you probably don't see Ruby or Python or some of those, they're talking about sheer numbers. And so when you think about the demand, right, a startup might have 3 or 5 Ruby developers. A large enterprise company could have, right, 10s, 20s, 30s, just a group of .NET developers. So don't misunderstand what I'm saying. There's a demand for everything. It just happens to be the most amount of jobs posted are for these. And the other part too is because, right, a lot of companies aren't posting on DICE that are startups. Not a knock on DICE. Just sometimes startups don't know how to recruit very well. I hope that's okay to say. Again, some more information on what are the most difficult roles to fill. I think that for the IT pro, it's one thing to understand. It's just because you can code doesn't mean everything. And yes, you're in demand, but that doesn't mean everything either. Because I've had IT folks saying, but I'm not getting a job. These are also the other things that we're looking for, employers are looking for when they're recruiting people. So it's not just are you a good Node person? Are you a web developer with Salesforce experience? It's not just that. It's all of these things too. So you can hit pause on this if you want to. I'm going to keep rolling through though. Some salary info, some surveys. I think I've got the slides coming up here in a second. Average IT salary increase, like merit increases internally, is 1 to 3%. I would suggest if I'm thinking about retention of my IT staff at a company in town, 1 to 3% is not cutting it. We are starting to see this part now where IT folks are saying, well, I've kind of hung on long enough. The recession's long ago over. Salary increases aren't coming up so much. Because essentially right now an IT professional, of any flavor, of any sort, right, is getting a 5 or 10% salary increase when they're jumping from one company to another. So we're only paying our folks internally maybe 2.5%. Yet when we're recruiting them, we're giving them a 5 to 10% bump. And I'm thinking, why didn't you just give that to your current employees to keep them around? But that gets me into a soapbox for some CIOs and for a conversation for another day. I put this in here too for those who are thinking about like what has happened to IT salaries over the years. Well, here you are. Here's the chart. So if, this goes back to 2010, if you add up all those percents, that's an 8, 9, 10% increase in pay. So if you're paying your folks what you were paying them in 2010, you are behind the curve. Sorry to say it that way. And I have some more stats to prove it because some folks always push back on me. Again, I'm going to breeze through a couple of those. Again, folks who thought that they were going to be giving salary increases for their staff, some more stats on that. Again, more salary stats. Kind of right. So if you're an internal IT pro and you're looking at some of this stuff and you're hitting on Paul, you're saying, what does this mean for me? It means that you probably are in a much better spot than you were, a couple 3 years ago, right? I also will say that, by the way, I don't think that the grass is always greener on the other side, which might shock a lot of you. Right? I don't always think that the grass is greener on the other side. Sometimes I don't even know who to attribute the quote to, but sometimes the grass is greener where you water it. So before you necessarily take that next position and you fill that next seat, which may have been vacated by somebody else who jumped for greener pastures, right? So just think about that with your career path and your development, your maintenance of your career. Staff salaries by top 20 metro areas. Again, this is kind of anecdotal stuff. But they're saying here, right, it's been, a 10 grand bump over the last 2 years. And then it just compares it to every other city, right? I also always say to folks, remind yourself that there needs to be some cost of living adjustment. 95 grand here is not the 120 in San Francisco, is not the 90 in Dallas, right? So just for those folks who might be thinking about moving around, folks who are listening to this or thinking about coming here, these are some things to be thinking about. And then we got the percentage changes again. People are asking about salaries, so I try to grab as much info as I could. You'll note that for 2014, the Minneapolis-St. Paul Bloomington area ranks 4th for salary increases, just as that merit pay again. So again, I would suggest if it's only 1.8%, but someone can jump 5 to 10 if they go somewhere else, we should probably be thinking about some retention things. I have no faith in this number here whatsoever, that salary decreased from 2012 to 2013. The reason why I included it, though, is it actually shows the salaries back to 2005 and how much they've gone up. So again, I think the 2013, I think there's something wrong with the number. I frankly think it's because not enough people actually applied to that particular survey. So with all the stuff that's going on, salaries have gotten a little funky. So you might be sitting here right now going, well, what's a 5-year .NET developer getting? Can you tell us that? I can probably on any of these skill sets, I can take 3 or 4 different surveys and put together a decent salary range for you. I just couldn't do it all for everybody right now, right? But this is kind of like, this is what your entry level folks, some are getting 45 to 60, and then 70 to 100, 100, 130, 150 plus in Minneapolis is rare. I'm talking about like full-time, full-time employee, W-2 with benefit type jobs. There's just not a lot of those. And I'm kind of taking this more as a staff. So if you're a manager, if you're a director or above, this won't pertain to you. But for the rank and file doing the work, here in Minneapolis, right, our salaries do cap out. They do everywhere. And again, I would just always remind folks that if you see your friends out in Silicon Valley making 160 a year, now take the cost of living and what is it up there? Another 40% on top of here. Your salaries aren't that far out of whack if we start thinking about things. So if you have specific questions, thoughts, comments on this, and you want to know something, send me an email. Give me a couple of days to put some info together for you, and I will. So that's why I did put a bunch of stuff in here. And here's another part to this. What a large enterprise company is paying a Ruby developer is different than what a startup is paying a Ruby developer, right? That's just common sense. So it could be 80 grand, it could be 90 grand at a startup, it could be 105 or 110 at the Fortune 500 company, who has a bunch of benefits, who also may not have the coolest things to work on sometimes. Please, no one from a Fortune 500 company send me an email. The startup company is right, but they may have some cooler things to work on, or that's where people want to work at versus a really large organization. So salaries, right, come with it, pros and cons. I put this in here just about the satisfaction on money. Again, I'm kind of spending a few more minutes on this than the other ones. It's just to give people an idea of what everybody else is thinking about what they're making. And I would suggest that there is some stress here now that folks are thinking that they are not getting paid probably what they should be. And then one real quick here, the overall tech economy startups, right? Startups tend to pay a little bit less. Bonuses tend to be a little bit less. interesting enough, satisfaction with pay is always a little bit more. So again, we're talking about, sometimes it's not just apples and apples. This could be apples and potatoes for some folks. For the IT consultants and for those hiring them, here again, this is from Dice. I'm seeing from a lot of developers in town, the 1099, the corp to corp folks saying that their rates aren't going up very much or haven't, and they're trying and they're getting pushback. And I think that at some point in time that dam will break. There are a lot of companies in town who seem to be wanting to hold strong, and then they can't figure out why in 10 weeks they haven't been able to find someone, and then they always give in. I think this is going to be a continuing pattern here for the short run. The one thing that I have been saying to consultants over, at every event that I've been to for the last 9 months or a year now is to ask for $5 more an hour. Like, just ask. Don't be a jerk, right? Don't be arrogant about it, but I would negotiate a little bit if I were you. The other thing I would be doing, too, if I'm an IT consultant, my LinkedIn profile is going to look damn good. And if I've got a website or a blog, it's going to look really good. Just by perception alone of how good your things look online, your profile could be worth $5 more an hour to you. So whether you're billing, 800 hours, 1,000 hours, are you billing 2,000 hours a year? You're doing the same work, and we're talking about, $5,000, $7,000, $10,000 more a year just by asking for $5 more an hour. I know I've probably just annoyed my IT consulting friends because now I've just cost them $5,000 or $7,000, $10,000 a year. But you know what? The IT folks are the ones doing the work. Some stuff on the recruiting side of things. Some surveys. And again, if you're an IT pro or if you're for the workforce management folks at the large companies in town, this kind of gives you an idea. Are people looking for a new job? Are they looking for a new employer? So one thing you want to be thinking about is, yes, people are looking. That also, so on the recruiting side of things, that's good news. And on the retention side of things, that's bad news because we're also talking about your people. So as you look at these next slides, kind of be thinking about that. The webinar I did a month ago, whatever it was, for ERE, and a blog post that went along with it was focusing on our job ads that we're posting tend to be focused on what employers want. By the way, maybe you should start paying attention to what it is that IT folks want and putting those in your job descriptions too, if you have those at your company. I can hear, metaphorically, my IT friends applauding this right now. What are the reasons why someone should leave their current job to come work for you is rarely in your job description. I would suggest you start thinking about that from a marketing, sales, PR standpoint. So I've got a few slides in here about this is what recruiters want, or this is what workers want, sorry. And these things are all really consistent. This one's both for staff and for management. You'll note that sometimes what staff and management want in a job aren't always the same or ranked in the same order. So again, lots of information for you to dive through. And one more slide on top of that. And one more slide on top of that. So again, if you've been trying to figure out why can't you hire anyone, maybe you need to start looking at some of these things too. Salary is always 1, 2, or 3, right? But what about the rest of the things too? I only just tossed this in here just because this is a little bit less. I think we have a few less perks here in Minneapolis than maybe the folks on the coasts are doing. But if I am an IT pro and I'm negotiating a compensation package and they're stuck on the salary for budget reasons or whatnot, can you get other things too? Can you get your cell phone paid? Can you get internet access? Can you work 4 10-hour days in the summertime? Or any of those things, right? I would be thinking about some of the other things that you could increase your total comp for, or at least be a little bit happier with an offer. So this is some good news, right? Since the recession, folks are saying that an IT career path, is promising today more than it was before, and so the positives are getting better and the negatives are decreasing. So that's a good sign for all of us. Believe it or not, folks are taking jobs for lower pay. It happens. It happens a lot. And so here are some of the reasons for that too. I tossed in just a real quick thing, by the way, and I'm almost done with this. IT outsourcing practices. We've seen a number of companies. We've seen a couple of companies outsource, not necessarily offshore work, and we've actually seen a number of companies who are bringing work back in. Best Buy from a couple of years ago, there are a couple of announcements that haven't been made yet here in Minneapolis where jobs are coming back in, full-time employees versus being outsourced or offshored. So this is my conclusion to all of this. And again, this is just a summary, a broad overview of the way I see the market. Now understand, I work mostly with startups and tech companies and then consult with Fortune 500 companies on recruiting strategy stuff. Okay. So if you're in an IT consulting group, the salaries, the increases, the numbers that you're seeing may be different than what I'm seeing. Okay. I know my market very well, the startups and tech companies. I know what the recruiting strategies for the Fortune 500 companies are here in town. I see what the tech companies are struggling with. But this is my perspective, but since it's my session, I just figured I would give you that disclaimer. Moral to the story is it's just going to be more of the same. We are definitely back to pre-recession, 2007, like peak, November of 2007 was peak employment. And we are way in the calendar before that. We are not back to the dot-com crazy days. I don't think that Minneapolis-St. Paul will get back to the dot-com crazy days, right? Our highs aren't so high, our lows aren't so low, which is in part why even just the Minneapolis or the Minnesota economy has come back faster than many of the other states in our region, faster than the regions in the country. We also just don't get as high either, right? So I'm just going with more of the same. That's it. Just wanted to throw some stuff out there to you. If you've got questions, thoughts, comments, send me an email. If you want the slide deck, send me an email. If you want to send me a LinkedIn invite, that's cool. Follow me on Twitter, that's great. All of those events that are coming up, again, are posted on my blog. If you have any questions, just send them on to me. So I hope this is some help to you. Even if you just want to send me an email and say, hey, Paul, this was great. That sucked. Why didn't you talk about this? Because I'm going to start doing this twice a year. I always do this with my clients. And I'm always talking about it with candidates one-on-one, but I'll do this twice a year, like in a public forum like this, as a way of being able to try to help some folks out. So with that, I hope you're doing well. It's summertime in Minneapolis. The polar vortex. I still feel scarred, but it's a distant memory. So I hope you all are doing well, and take care. Thanks.